the family test. I'm only well if you are well, the proverb of Kenya. A Trojan horse. With a Trojan horse we enter a whole new era of my life. After losing his biggest client, my husband decided to quit Hollywood. So we made plans to retire in France, where we would help taking care of my aging mother. We envisioned a project to transform my family property into a youth center called La Boule Farm. But dealing with my family, however, revealed itself to be more treacherous than dealing with Hollywood. The Big Sow Creatrix.
The Big Sow Creatrix expresses the sizzling tension that grips the family. I start portraying our older sister as a pig, literally. Lean is a big woman. She is the tallest of the sisters and has padded some weight onto her frame. The mix of pink snout, round cheeks, long eyelashes, and sensual lips create a funny portrait of a sow with a feminine touch, which define the image of my sister I carry in my mind at that very moment. Blinded by my own views, I see her as the family villain, a greedy pig, and a pig-headed one at that. Being the oldest, Lean always bragged about how much she nurtured us when we were children. But I was 5 when I was sent to college, 14 when she married, and instead of attending her wedding in Amsterdam, I was sent to summer camp for a week for lack of space and funds. This dichotomy finds its visual expression in the woman's tits, one flowing with milk through a good nipple, the other but a dead fish with a toothy mouth. She is the devouring mother as much as the nourishing one. I define her body with large random strokes of colors and smaller ones to fill the space around it. Those look like tiny minnows radiating out of her head, so I turn them into fish. The same happens with the rest of her body. Suddenly her arms, her legs, her shoes, everything about her become fish. My sister is no longer a piggish critter, but a formidable goddess, radiating vibrant rays of light with potent energy. She is huge. She arises like a mythic mother above the insignificant characters at her feet. Hence the tongue-in-cheek title of Big Sow Creatrix, one of the primal good mother figures of Celtic lore. Fish symbolizes water, the element in which they live, and water is the source of life. The small fish pattern an undifferentiated mass of waters in which the primary impulse of creation takes place. This symbolic watery womb represents the Great Mother. So, in spite of the fact that I started painting my sister as a despicable piggish character, I portrayed her in the end as a great nurturing mother emerging from the creative waters. This was an interesting reversal, one that I couldn't understand at the time. Only years later did it make sense when Lean shifted role from villain to that of good mother for me.
So this painting is a good example of the transformation process that can take place during the creative act. The Crown. The crown marks my rite of passage into wisdom, freedom, and personal power by the side of my aging mother. Urban Monk. Urban Monk was painted in Spain, where my husband and I spent the winters while we took care of my mother in the summers in France. The painting expresses my happiness with my newfound home. Since there was no meditation teachers in this small Spanish village, I took on that role. I lived like a monk, getting up at 4 in the morning, meditating for 3 hours, and spending much of my days translating sacred text into Spanish so that I could teach in Spanish. The stitches in the monk's robe evoke a monk's robe of old, sewed out of little scraps of cloth, as they were done in the time of the Buddha. So this is my urban monk's robe. The Virgin of Solitude. This takes place in Spain as well, and here is the little village where we were living And this is relating to the different layers of culture that were still alive in Spain. The Christian layer and the sacrifice of the bull, paralleling the sacrifice of Christ as a symbol of death and resurrection. Psyche and her sister. Psyche and her sisters draw a parallel between the myth of Psyche and my own marital situation, whereby my sisters became implicated in helping me shed some light on the blind love I was living. There is suffering. There is suffering is a raw expression of the toll my family crisis was inflicting on my husband and I, and on our relationship. My sister's lies and betrayals activated the bipolar nature of my husband and pushed him into acting out. One night he exploded into a rage of humongous proportions. Going into the studio, I painted with energetic Zen strokes that became a means of imposing a form to my terror, as Picasso would have said. Later, during the writing process, the image helped me relate to my suffering, not as I am suffering, but as there is suffering. And when I say there is suffering, that's healing, because when I say there is suffering, there is no longer an I who suffers. Suffering is no longer mine, it simply becomes part of being human. 1000 Buddha. Things had gone too far for too long with my family. My sisters actually plotted together to throw my husband and I out of the house, so I cut my ties with my family affairs. Unfortunately, that's when we were just succeeding in manifesting our La Boule farm project. One of my nieces, a high school teacher in a ghetto of Paris, was sending us 16-year-old girls from underprivileged families for 2 weeks at a time. The primary incentive for them was to learn English, but at the same time, my husband offered them a life coaching, and I initiated them to meditation and painting. The girls loved it. They couldn't get enough of it. And on their last day, they asked me to paint with them. So I grabbed a piece of cardboard and this image came up. That day in the studio, I felt like we were reaching our goal. I saw our 5 pupils as beautiful little Buddhas in the making. Part 4, Coming Home. No community can exist without a unifying story. Thomas Berry. Sacred marriage. Sacred marriage appeared spontaneously in my mind during a meditation session. Going to my studio, I simply tried to paint this vision as faithful as I could. The experience was that of the divine feminine and the enlightened masculine harmoniously merged into one, and alive with an overwhelming energy of blissful love. Touching my pain. Touching my pain marks a departure. When I was working on this painting, I held in my mind the image that I was the sweet woman with the blue veil who was embracing my sister in the throes of great suffering, even though she was the one who had, in our absence, she had actually thrown all of the belonging to myself and my husband into the barns to force us into abandoning our La Boule farm project. But deep down, I knew that she was the one who was digging her own grave by cutting me off. Mother's Garden. Mother's Garden functions as a eulogy to my mother.
As I paint, I silently enter in communion with you, Mother, and let your presence suffuse me with your emotional content. Growing old can be a long awaiting for the final separation, but you, Mother, are not afraid of facing death. When I happily cared for you after your hip operation, you rewarded me with the gift of simply telling my sisters in several occasions, Noelle would have made a great nurse. One day as we were relaxing on a garden bench, sipping the sunset glow, you trusted me with your deepest secret. A secret, you said, you had told no one, not even our father. Our mother-daughter bond was mended over those rare instances of intimacy. They opened up a door between the two of us through which love found its way. I understand now why you couldn't hold us in your arms or kiss us goodnight when we were children. You unconsciously ensured that the trauma you suffered at the hands of your mother wouldn't repeat itself. This painting is my gift to you. It is my way to heal the wound we both have inherited, each in our own way.
Atonement. Atonement portrays a schoolgirl being visited by the specters of her perpetrator and her 3 aborted sons. An unconscious association has brought past aggressor and future victims to mirror each other. Bearing witness to Auschwitz. Bearing witness to Auschwitz takes us to the infamous place where the organized murder of more than 1 million people took place. The work addresses the killing of innocent people as an ongoing occurrence rather than as a thing of the past. It reflects on how our personal lives are connected with the ongoing violence. The Pillar of Light. The Pillar of Light represents a woman whose Kundalini energy has awakened, connecting the lower chakra of survival instincts in the womb with blissful love in the heart and higher consciousness in the third eye area. The many arms, many eyes, elephant ears, orgasmic womb, and radiant heart all express a sense of power and nobility that comes from spiritual awakening. I have come to my power. Kuan Yin. Kuan Yin is the Chinese mother of compassion, she who perceives the cries of the world. To paint Kuan Yin, I used a tantric meditation technique. The idea is to stop the mind from projecting our ordinary delusional fantasies and project instead a Buddha figure, in this instance Kuan Yin, and then, as best as possible, totally focus on the feeling of being heard. Phoenix rising. When the end of its life approaches, the phoenix builds a nest of aromatic branches before it immolates itself in a show of flames and combustion, while a new phoenix gets reborn from the ashes. Its dual function of coffin and crib makes the nest of the phoenix a relevant image for our society on the brink of destruction and renewal. Double vortex or torus. For the last painting of the book, I used the very first painting I did during my very first workshop at SLN. Its double vortex image alludes to not the end but the beginning. Through Darkness into Light, My Life in 40 Portraits is a coming home story. It exemplifies how by facing our shadow, we can reconnect with our true nature, the nurturing interconnectedness of all things. Our position is not at the top of the pyramid, but at the heart of the vortex.